of Gaza for 50 days.
Yeah, she was 8 years old when they took her, and she was 9 years old when they gave her back.
What did she experience while she was there that you can share with us?
Lack of food, lack of light, lack of freedom, lack of privacy. They had to endure a lot of uncomfortable things.
I remember you telling us that after her captivity, when she was freed, that she would speak like in whispers in a very hushed voice because she was ordered to remain quiet at all times. How is she now?
Back to her old self. She's nice and loud, yeah. Yeah, I'll never tell her to be quiet again.
Tell us about some of the activities that Emily is participating in now.
Well, everything is a therapy to get her confidence, self-confidence back in. So she's horse riding, which, if you can think about it, she's on a horse, massive beast, and she's in control of it. It gives her a lot of confidence. Dog training. She was doing singing on stage to project her voice again. Anything that we can think of to help.
How have you as a father recovered from this captivity? Because the impact on you must have been enormous. And tell us about why you're here today. What's your message?
Yeah, obviously the impact was horrendous. I thought she was dead. Then she wasn't. She was captive, even worse than death. And then we finally got her back somehow. It was a miracle that we got her back. And I'm here today to remember the fallen, the millions of Jews and other groups of people, minorities. But also it's very significant this year, particularly because we are living in the second Holocaust, the second genocide, attempted genocide. And we'll survive this as well. The Jews will always survive.
What do you feel about the current surge of anti-Semitism that is sweeping the world right now?
I'm sorry, but I hate the word anti-Semitism. It's too nice a word for it. It could be a lovely flower or a lovely butterfly. Have you seen an anti-Semite recently? Anyway, it's terrible, and it comes from pure Jewish hate of the Jews, for God knows what reason, and ignorance, basically. Read a book.
You originally, you came from a different country to live in Israel. How has your home nation, the nation of your birth, reacted to Emily's captivity?
I don't know about the people themselves, but the government of Ireland really, really were critical in getting Emily back. No matter how they portray themselves on the television or in the public, they were crucial in getting Emily back. Crucial.
Well, we're all very, very, very happy that Emily is home, and we're all working to get the rest back as well. Thomas Hand, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Daniel Luz is among 5 other Holocaust survivors who will light a torch later today at the ceremony here in Birkenau in memory of the 6 million Jews who were murdered during the Holocaust. Many, many members of Mr. Luz's family perished here. And then on October 7th, he awoke to the horrors of the Hamas attack on his home in Israel's kibbutz Be'eri.
אני דניאל לוז, לוצקי לשעבר, נולדתי בפריז ב-29 לשמיני 1933. שרדתי את השואה ועליתי לארץ. ב-7 לאוקטובר הארור 2023 הייתי בבארי. רוב המשפחה של אמי שחיו בצרפת הושמדו ב-11 ל-11 1942 באושוויץ. אבי בתחילת המלחמה נלקח למחנה של גברים בסן-דני ליד פריז. אני, אחותי ואמי, אחרי גלגולים רבים, הגענו למחנה אחרון ב-1944 כבר, ושם ראינו עד כשאמריקאים שפלשו לנורמנדיה שחררו אותנו מהמחנה. פעם ראשונה שהרגשתי סכנת חיים זה ב-7 לאוקטובר 2023 בבארי, ב6:30 בבוקר, שהתחלתי לשמוע צעקות בערבית על ידי ויריות. זה היה מפחיד. יש לי קריקטורה שבתחילת המלחמה שלח לי ידיד מאיטליה, ילד מהשואה, לפי הביגוד, נפגש עם ילד ישראלי לפי הזה, ואחד נוגע באצבע של השני, ואחד אומר לשני, אני סומך עליך. ואני מרגיש בדיוק שאני בעצם שני הילדים. אני ממש מאמין שכל היקרים שלי שנפטרו שומרים עליי כדי שאני אוכל לספר את הסיפור. את הסיפור שגם מה שהם עברו, כל אלה שלא היה להם המזל שלי. המתנה הזאת שצירפו אותי למצעד החיים זה בעצם סגירת מעגל שמאפשרת לי להחזיר לכל היקרים שלי את הכבוד שמגיע להם. אני לא מאמין שנתנו לי תפקיד כזה לספר מה שהיה.
What incredibly moving testimony. Let's now take a look at the march in progress. Let's see, the people are just setting off. You can see that at the head of the march, at the head of the procession, you will see Holocaust survivors behind those carrying the banner, the official banner for March of the Living 2024. They're just now heading off from Auschwitz I to Auschwitz II, known as Birkenau as well. You can read the banners. This one reading in both Hebrew and in English. The Jews are here to stay. Many people have draped themselves in the Israeli flag as a very direct sign of solidarity with the Jewish state. It's important to remember that the Holocaust ended in 1945 at the end of World War II. There was no Jewish state at that time. Israel was only created in 1948, the modern state of Israel. So the Jews who perished here, the 6 million Jews who died in Europe, there was no Jewish homeland. There was nowhere for them to go. That is a situation which has now changed dramatically, even though on the 7th of October, the greatest atrocities ever that have been perpetrated against the Jewish people took place on the 7th of October, but in an entirely different environment. There is a Jewish state. There is a Jewish army. The Israel Defense Forces immediately began fighting back the same day as October 7th during the attacks and in full force within just hours afterward. The atrocities that were committed during the Holocaust gave rise to that call, never again. And even though that call was somewhat shattered, diminished on October 7th, it still is not in the same context. There is a Jewish state which is fighting to protect Israel to this day, and Israel has many allies and supporters around the world, many of whom are here today, and you will be able to see the various delegations waving their own national flags. You'll see them from countries around the world, organizations around the world, leaders of organizations, adults, teenagers, everyone marching together to remember the Holocaust and to honor the Jewish state of Israel. Earlier today, I spoke with Haim Taib. He's the grandson of a Holocaust survivor from Tunisia. He is the founder and the president of the Mitrelli Group and the Menamoudin Foundation, which has been taking a more active role in a different turn since the atrocities on October 7th. Let's listen. Joining me now is Chaim Taib, who is the founder and the president of the Mitrelli Group and the Menomadin Foundation, which is dedicated to preserving the memory of the Jews of Tunisia and North African countries who also suffered during the Holocaust, although this history is often overlooked. Let's start today, however, with the fact that your foundation organized the delegation of survivors of the October 7th massacre. Tell me about that, please.
What happened in Israel in October 7, it's horror. And immediately after, I decided that as a grandson of a Holocaust survivor from Tunisia, I must do something. So we start help the cities and the kibbutzim in Gaza envelope to recover and to rebuild, and we take them to here to Auschwitz-Birkenau to march together with me, because I think have a connection between what happened in the Holocaust and what happened in Israel in October 7 attack. It's more or less the same, because the idea to kill the Jewish people in the Holocaust and to kill the Jewish people in the October 7, it's the same. So this is the motivation to bring them here.
And the foundation also has participated in many other activities that you've just now undertaken in light of the subsequent war between Israel and Gaza. Can you tell us about those activities?
Yes, we help all the cities and the kibbutzim in the Gaza envelope to recover, as I said before, and we in Menomadin writing a strategic roadmap for communities and countries. I'm doing it in Africa, I'm doing it in Israel, and I think it's very important.
Absolutely. Now, last year you lighted one of the torches of remembrance specifically for the Jews of Tunisia, North African countries, along with your wife, Iris, who's also a third-generation Holocaust survivor. Tell us what that was like for you.
It was very emotional. I'm the grandson of Holocaust survivor from Tunisia. My wife, Iris, she's a Holocaust granddaughter of Holocaust survivor from Auschwitz, and it was very emotional for us and for all the family that came together with us.
Did your grandfather share many of his experiences with you, what he went through during World War II?
Yes, not so much, but he talked a lot about the first camp that he was there during 5 months, and how he ran away from there, and how he come home. And my grandmother was very scared to open the door or no, because she didn't believe that he is him. She opened the door, and she was very happy, of course, but this is more or less the story that he told us in that time.
It's really very moving. Thank you very, very much for joining us today, Chaim Taib. Thank you. As you can see, the march is proceeding. Again, it's a 3.2-kilometer route between the two camps. Auschwitz itself was a complex. It's important to realize that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Auschwitz I was the main camp. And then there was Auschwitz II, which was Birkenau, which was exclusively an extermination camp. There was also something that was once called Auschwitz III, Monowitz, which is right nearby where we are today. That was primarily for forced labor. But there were at least another 37 sub-camps, satellites. Altogether, there were around 40 different camps where prisoners were forced to work, where they were incarcerated, where they were beaten to death or worked to death or starved to death, and then ultimately ended up in the crematoria around us. But so Auschwitz itself was enormous. Gabriella Karin is a Holocaust survivor and the author of a book called Trauma, Memory, and the Art of Survival. She now dedicates her life to educating young people in schools and at many other sites in the hope that understanding the history of the Holocaust will help ensure that it can never be repeated. Alex spoke with Gabriela earlier today at Auschwitz.
We're here with Gabriela Kareen, a Holocaust survivor and author of the book Trauma, Memory, and the Art of Survival. You live in Los Angeles, and you're here this year as one of 55 survivors marching in the March of the Living, and I noticed that you have a very interesting picture hanging from your shirt. Can you explain to me what it is that we're looking at here?
It's 24 inches mirror, and the mirror reflection shows the leaves. The leaves shows the Jewish people, because the leaf that is falling down from a tree is not alive. And in the middle there is an eye, and it shows the October 7.
How has your work changed as an educator, you know, seeing what's going on, not just in Israel on October 7th, but also anti-Semitism that's now rising in the United States? You mentioned that you're from Los Angeles. Did you ever think that you would see moments like this again in the United States? And what are you doing to help your community deal with emerging threats?
I am going from museum to museum, from school to school, and talking to them and explaining them. It doesn't matter what color skin you have, what color hair you have, what color eyes you have. We are all the same people, and we don't have to love everybody, but we have to respect every person on this earth. We all have the right to be here.
And it sounds like you have a bit of a hope inside of your voice that we can bring in a better time. Tell me what you've seen such horrific things, and we're starting to see it again. How do you remain optimistic in a time like this?
I survived Holocaust, and I never thought it will happen something similar. But I'm hoping this went over. This will go over too. I am an optimist, yes. And I'm talking to people and bringing some hope into their life, because it's pretty hard right now, especially for the young people.
Absolutely. Gabriela Kareen, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for being here on this March of the Living. It's an incredible effort you've made to be here, and for bringing message of hope and peace and history to the next generations of Jews in the United States and elsewhere. Thank you for being with us on the March of the Living.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What a wonderful perspective she had. Well, the Nazi genocide was aimed at exterminating every Jew on the planet as part of their so-called final solution. This evil plan was executed primarily between 1941 and 1945, when the Third Reich and its collaborators systematically murdered at least 6 million Jewish people, totaling about 2/3 of the population that had been living in Europe. This killing of all ages, infants, young children, boys, girls, parents, grand and even great-grandparents, was carried out by mass shootings by Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing units, and then the eventual construction of gas chambers at death camps. Most notably, those death camps were Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, and Chelmno, all of which were in then what was occupied Poland. Now we're going to join Alex along the march. He's there marching with several participants, and he's going to stop and speak with some.
Hi, we're here with Yuval Yeni, who's the acting Mankal Director General of Kakao, which is Keren Kayemet Israel, in some way affiliated with the JNF Israel, and also David Yari, who's a board member of Kakao. You're one of the most important organizations in Israel. Everybody knows about the planting of the trees. Maybe people know a little bit less about the work that you do to develop the periphery communities in Israel. You know, tell me a little bit about why it's so important to be here on March of the Living this year.
First of all, this year represents also 80 years of the deportation of the Hungarian Jews. So we just came as a mishlachat. We're here with all the directors and vice chairs of Kakal. We came from Hungary, where we were in Budapest, and now where they all ended up here by train tracks. If you look right to the left, the train tracks where they were taken to Birkenau and where the Jewish people were murdered in mass in just the waning months of the war. And so more than ever, what Kakal has done is put a lot of emphasis on education, on the next generation. And so coming here and making a statement with our education department and our team to make sure that the next generation understands the importance of not only never forgetting, but taking action in face of what's happening in the Jewish world.
You want to tell me a little bit about what Kakal is doing since October 7th in Israel?
Well, actually, since October 7, Kakal is helping a lot to the people in the south and the communities also. First of all, we in the first months we took people outside to safe area to live there and be there and give them educational activities. In addition, 2 weeks ago we decided to cooperate with the state to build transition to the Kfar Aza village to Kibbutz Ruchama, and it's a mega project that we are entering as we speak. Hopefully till Rosh Hashanah, the first people will enter the Kibbutz Ruchama, and of course Kakal will be in the near future, in the long run, to help the people in the south, in Otef Aza, and we hope really to better times. Israel Chai.
Yuval, thank you so much for being with us on March of the Living.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Following the 1938 Kristallnacht, Night of the Shattered Glass pogrom, many Jewish parents made the unimaginably difficult decision to send their young children away alone on something that was called Kindertransport, meaning the transportation of children. And some 15,000 Jewish children were sent from Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia abroad, predominantly to the United Kingdom. The barbaric Hamas terror attacks in Israel on October 7th sparked harrowing memories of the dangers that are posed to Jews by those children, what they experienced then, now they're adults, of course, and what they endured as children. Two of those men are Walter Bingham and Paul Alexander. 100-year-old Mr. Bingham is a German-born British actor, businessman, a decorated World War II veteran, and Israel's oldest working journalist I've had the privilege to work alongside of. 88-year-old Paul Alexander, after being on a Kindertransport, eventually became an attorney in London, and after the Holocaust, he married and he raised a family, and today he lives in Israel. Both of these men retraced the journey they took as children, along with 92-year-old George Sheffy, that they took 85 years ago from their birthplace in Germany, then by train to the Netherlands, to eventually board a boat to England. Again, along that very same route they took 8.5 decades ago, as we will see here in the documentary called The Journey of Hope.
The Kindertransport was never talked about as it should have been.
This is what people know about Kinder. They don't know about this. That's why this trip is particularly important. The Nazis came to power and immediately it changed. We were trapped. It was a slow strangulation of Jewish life.
My mom said to me, Tomorrow you're going to go by train. You're going to go and travel on a ship. You're going to another country. You'll see another country.
We knew that the war was coming. There was no doubt at all that this was a one-way journey. I'm looking at that. I was crying. We were like that.
Yeah.
We were like that. I can't imagine when the train pulled out and we waved. What the parents were thinking of. They must have broken down.
They took me to the station and put me into the arms of a stranger at the age of 1 year. 1 year and 7 months. They pushed an empty carrier home. Who knows what went through their minds.
The tragedy of the Holocaust is not only Auschwitz and Birkenau.
Let's now not only watch but also listen to participants on this year's March of the Living.
Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Nisrinu, Am Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. This is really the spirit of the March of the Living. This is the March of Life, and the Jewish people are living. Thank you guys for joining us here in the March of the Living.
Amid the sharp rise in anti-Semitism on campuses in the United States following the outbreak of the Hamas-Israel war last October, the International March of the Living has launched its first ever University Presidents and Chancellors mission from the United States and Canada, headed by the former U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. John King, who's now the Chancellor of SUNY, which oversees a system of 64 colleges and universities in New York State, together with Yeshiva University President, Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman. The delegation includes a diverse group of leaders from higher academic institutions, including public, private, Catholic, evangelical, and historically black colleges and universities. Alex brings us this interview with both leaders from Auschwitz.
We're here with Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman, president of Yeshiva University, which is my alma mater. You are leading a group of several university presidents, seeing what's going on university campuses right now as we're holding this March of the Living. Tell me, what is the meaning of having this march at this time with these university presidents, and what's your message to these presidents?
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. Look, there's a rising tide of anti-Semitism across the world, especially on college campuses. We're here as university presidents and the place where the greatest horror in the history of humanity took place, to recognize that unchecked hate leads to clear and present danger. And we together, the leadership of universities, together with all people of moral conscience, need to work to eliminate hate and anti-Semitism from our campuses and from the world.
We've seen different responses to anti-Semitism, to anti-Israel protests, the encampments on college campuses. You've been able to provide some thought leadership to university presidents. What is your message to those presidents on how to deal with the urgent situation taking place on the campuses today?
Well, we need to differentiate between free speech and hate speech. We cannot allow one group of students to intimidate another. This is not a matter of freedom of expression. It's a matter of student safety. In addition, we need truth. The point of higher education is not to equivocate. It's not to host conversations, but it's to educate. And here, I can share with you, because I've spoken to college presidents from across the country, After October 7th, we brought together over 100 college presidents who were able to sign a statement that said, we stand with Israel, with the Palestinians who suffer under Hamas's cruel rule, and all people of moral conscience, that we stand against terrorism. And the truth is that Hamas is a terrorist organization whose charter is to destroy the Jewish state and its Jewish citizens. And if we all speak with clarity, then this whole conversation, the complexity of the other pieces, could then unfold in a rational, civil manner. We just need to be clear. And the lessons of the Holocaust is that when hate is expressed, when there's a group of people calling for a genocide, you should believe them, and you should counter them, and you need to combat them with everything that you have.
You have a lot of university students, Jewish students, saying that they no longer feel safe on a lot of university campuses. You know, what's your message to the university presidents about how to protect, defend Jewish students on campus?
Look, this is very important. You know, we opened up our transfer portal again to allow for more students. We have over 53% transfer students, an increase in transfer students at Yeshiva University. But we cannot hold every Jewish student in the country, nor would it be good for America and our society for it to happen. Campuses need to be safe for Jews, not free from Jews. And that's what I tell our university presidents. And I'm happy to share, like with this delegation here, there are a number of good, excellent people and excellent universities. We hear often in the press the bad actors are the ones who can't control their campuses. I can tell you that there are many, many more great people, excellent campuses, people who speak with moral clarity and truth, as represented by the delegation of university presidents who've come to Auschwitz to make a clear statement about how we must rally together against anti-Semitism and hate.
Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman, president of Yeshiva University, thank you so much for being with us here on the March of the Living.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for your work and the incredible work of March of the Living. This is so essential that we keep memory alive and that each of us in the Jewish community and around the world continue to learn the lessons of anti-Semitism as expressed in this horrific tragedy of the Holocaust.
Thank you.
The March of the Living is a pinnacle event on Holocaust Remembrance Day. Since 1988, over 300,000 participants have marched from Auschwitz I to Auschwitz II Birkenau in tribute of the immense loss suffered by the Jewish people and, indeed, all of humanity. For Jewish and Israeli students of this educational program, the March of Commemoration in Poland is part of a larger journey that will culminate in the March of Celebration in Jerusalem. Let's now listen to several young people who have come here today.
A big part of this year's March of the Living is bringing youth, bringing students, and particularly teenagers on the program. And here we have two students, high school students from Canada. We have Jack Pfeiffer, who's a public school student in Toronto, and also Britt Meisels, who goes to the Jewish Tenenbaum Chat High School in Toronto. Tell me, what meaning does this trip have for you as a Jew, and also what meaning does it have for you now after October 7th?
Well, my grandfather, Isaac Meisels, was a Holocaust survivor. He survived with his brother, miraculously, and he came to Canada. So as a Jew with roots to the Holocaust, roots to Poland, it's so crazy to be here. And honestly, I felt like I would be so upset and miserable in Poland, but around everyone here, I feel so strong. There's such a sense of liberty, and I think that's why I'm here, like, for the sense of liberty that I'm getting. And as a Jew, after October 7th, it's so important for us to march today for those who cannot, those in captivity, those who have passed away. It's just so important to march for the people who aren't here to march with us.
Yeah, I see that you're both wearing necklaces that you're actually marching on behalf of survivors that couldn't participate on the march, unfortunately. And tell me a little bit, Jack, about the Holocaust survivor that you're here representing today. And also, I'd like to know from you a little bit about what it is to be a Jew in a public school in Toronto at a time like this.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, I'm marching for my great-grandmother, who is still alive today, standing at 94 years old. Her name is Leah Politzer, and she has had such a significant impact on my life growing up and currently. And growing up and hearing these stories about her experience means so much to me. And being here and being able to experience, she was actually in this camp. She was in Auschwitz and survived. And being here and seeing this sign that I've heard so much about is enlightening and means so much to me.
What did she want you to take away from this trip?
So she doesn't really like to talk about her experience much because it's very traumatic for her. But she wants me to understand and feel what her and the rest of my family had went through at the time, and understand how and understand the pain and hardships that they went through in the time.
How big is Holocaust education for teenagers especially? Are teenagers able to relate to what happened here about 80 years ago?
Well, the thing is, when I grew up, I went to a middle school that taught us Yiddish, actually, and it was such a big part of my Holocaust education journey because it made us relate to everyone, really, that grew up at this time, especially because my grandfather also spoke Yiddish, and so does my grandmother. And it's relatable. It's our heritage. It's our people. It's so important to learn our history. They teach it very, very well at my school, Tannenbaum Chat, and they make it in a way that breaks our heart but uplifts us so that we learn from the past so that it never happens in the future.
So you go to Jewish school, you go to public school, but you're longtime friends. What kind of bond is this going on this trip together?
So going on this trip together, it means a lot. Although I don't go to a Jewish school anymore, I'm still part of the Jewish community within Toronto, and we all kind of know each other. And coming on this trip and connecting in a deeper level and understanding each other's troubles and how each other are feeling in a time like this, specifically with what happened on October 7th and how everyone has been affected, it means a lot.
Jack, Britt, thank you so much for being with us here on the March for the Living.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
We're now looking at the March of the Living this year. It's remarkably warm and sunny here today. It was like the sky is open for us. It had been forecast to be pouring rain, but instead, there are very nice conditions for the older people who are walking and the younger ones who joined them. Let's now go back to Alex, who's standing by alongside the march.
We're here with Aaron Levy, who was a former government spokesperson. You were a very important voice defending Israel in the early days, weeks, and months of the war after October 7th. Here we are in Auschwitz, walking from Auschwitz to Birkenau, and you see here a lot of the similar themes that we experienced on October 7th in Israel. Tell me why you think this year's march is so important and what you're taking away from it.
This march is so important because we've been vowing never again, and the last time that anti-Semites incinerated Jews to an ash was 7 months ago. It's important because right now there are Holocaust survivors that have to suffer the torment and indignity of having grandchildren who are hostages in the hands of terrorists who burned whole families alive. And it's important because right now we're seeing a horrific upswell of anti-Semitism around the world. And people are beginning to wake up. There is a diaspora awakening right now from people who had stuck their heads in the sand, realizing that actually the enlightened world is darker than they thought it was. When you see on campuses movements saying that fighting against Israel is an LGBT cause and a police brutality cause and a climate justice cause, what they're doing is the classic anti-Semitic model of saying all the problems in the world have a common source. That problem is the Jews. Fix the Jews and you fix the world. Exactly. Because if they think that the original sin of their societies is colonialism and white settler violence and imperialism, they take the story of a persecuted and scattered people returning to their ancestral homeland. This is historically indisputable. And to spin that as a story of colonialism is a way for them to deflect their own society's guilt onto the Jews. And yes, use a scapegoat.
What do you think is the message that you would like to pass to people that are watching this broadcast around the world right now?
First of all, if we're talking about Jewish communities, the importance of unity. If we don't stand tall, united, our enemies are going to pick us off one by one and eat us alive. We do not have the luxury of continuing our Jewish wars, and that's why it was so inspiring in the early days of the war to see how Israeli society came together. That diaspora awakening has to continue. Gen Z, Gen Zionists, I call them, realize that being a Zionist, being a Jew means standing up to the bullies. You can't let them call you names, you can't let them beat you down, you have to stand up, be counted, and fight back against the wave of anti-Semitism that we are seeing now, because we can't allow it to win. And what the Holocaust reminds us, perhaps different from other anti-Semitic persecutions in the past is that even in the most advanced, sophisticated societies, and specifically in the most advanced, sophisticated societies, are capable of the most horrific hatred and violence. We have to stop it in its tracks before it's too late.
Elan Levy, thank you so much for being with us here on March of the Living.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Among the grisliest discoveries at concentration camps by Allied forces who liberated them were storerooms of mounds of hair that had been shaved from Jewish prisoners upon their incarceration or from women before their deaths in the gas chambers or even after being murdered. This hair was actually collected by the Nazi SS to be sold to German companies as raw materials for a variety of purposes. Bales of hair cloth and nearly 2 tons of human hair removed from an estimated 40,000 victims are on exhibit at the Auschwitz Memorial still today.
But this is what hair looks 70 years after it has been removed and stored and becomes gray, loses its color, it starts to dissipate and turn into dust. This is the most difficult room for me because I imagine that my mother's hair and my sister's hair and my family's hair could be lying in there so that I could be looking at their remains. And it reminds me of what happened. It reminds me of what the Nazis did to our people, 6 million. And 6 million is difficult to conceive because, and I want you to remember that it was one sister, one mother, one brother, a sister, an uncle, an aunt, and then a grandparent, one person at a time, 6 million times. This is what it means. One person at a time.
Here with Doron Almog, who is the chairman of the Jewish Agency for Israel, which is one of the largest non-governmental agencies.
The biggest. Not one of the biggest NGO of the Jewish people. As a matter of fact, it's like the government of all the Jews in the world. According to Halacha, about 16 million Jews, half of them in Israel, half of them overseas. Not according to Halacha, according to law of return, about 25 million Jews.
Amazing. And today in Jewish communities, we're seeing a lot of difficulties with regard to engagement, affiliation, but also security. And can you tell me a little bit about how you're working with local diaspora Jewish communities around the world in order to increase engagement at this time, in order to keep communities unified and safe?
First of all, Jewish Agency having 3 roles, 3 main missions. The first mission is connecting all the Jewish communities all over the world in 65 countries. We have an array of about 2,600 emissaries, shlichim, among them shinshinim. In the United States alone, we have about 350 shlichim, about 100 in campus and university, facing the rise of anti-Semitism and encouraging the Jewish students. And I think, above all, bring pride to every Jew in the world, despite the sorrow, the grief, the Memorial Day for Holocaust. We need to be very proud on being Jew. And Jewish education, Jewish identity, this is our main mission, to empower and enhance the Jewish identity and the Israeli pride, Israeli culture, and the place of the State of Israel for every Jew in the world. You know, the State of Israel is a kind of guarantee for every Jew in the world. And we are here in Auschwitz, and it's a place to say that without State of Israel, we are much weaker. Together, we are stronger. And the State of Israel is a kind of guarantee. It's a kind of mission to consolidate Jews. Also, kibbutz galuyot is a mission.
In gathering of the exiles.
Gathering the exile, gathering those who are overseas. 2,000 years, Jewish people were spread all over. And State of Israel is a fulfillment of gathering.
And Aliyah, immigration to Israel, is one of the key tenets of the Jewish Agency's work.
On yourself, why did you, Alex, why did you make Aliyah? What is the power? I believe that it's something not rational. It's something which is based on love. Love to our people, love to Eretz Israel, love to the Bible, love to the State of Israel. It's unconditional love, and there is no logic in it. It's something deep inside, despite the threat to wipe out the State of Israel by Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, security. And since October 7, what we saw, a rise also of solidarity. Many solidarity missions arrived from all over the world, about more than $1 billion raised. Many new donors that never donated to the State of Israel. And this situation of pogrom in a Jewish state, a situation that none of us anticipated, none of us predicted. We thought the State of Israel is so strong, is so powerful, and there's no threat on our Judaism and the State of Israel. And I think now in this crisis, the biggest crisis since Holocaust, since the Second World War, Jews are more united, also more afraid, more worried, more scared, but also more united. And here in Auschwitz, we need to remind ourselves, number one, the 6 million that were killed only because they were Jews. We need to remind ourselves that there is anti-Semitism all over the world, and we need to be more united, more proud, and continue navigating ourselves according to our values. What are our values? Number one, it's arvut adadit, it's mutual responsibility. One for all for one. In my military service, that was the slogan leading us. I'm the first soldier to land in Entebbe, flying 4,000 kilometers and landing at night and rescue 105 Israeli hostages. It's from the same responsibility, mutual responsibility. And now these values of mutual responsibility and love, the unconditional love, is the leading idea for Tikkun Olam, for a better, stronger State of Israel. Continue leading by our values and make the State of Israel much stronger, more beautiful, a source of inspiration and pride to every Jew in the world. And I believe it will happen after this war. And many will come, many will make Aliyah. I believe about 1 million Jews will come in the next few years.
And what type of preparations are you, as the head of the Jewish Agency, making to facilitate that kind of ingathering and immigration?
We speak with the people, with Jews all over the world. We prepare them. We have a call center in Jerusalem, and we see right now a huge rise of about 300-400% by interest on Aliyah and opening file for Aliyah. What we do, we start the preparation overseas. For instance, if you're a doctor in physician living in Paris, but you are not authorized by Israeli Health Ministry to work as physician in Israel. So we start the preparation while you are overseas on everything. If you are a lawyer or engineer or whatever, we start the preparation overseas, getting the authorities. We start teaching Hebrew. Now, what are the conditions for good Aliyah? Number one is the Hebrew, the language, highly important, number one. Number two, the job, occupation. So we start preparing the occupation while they are overseas. Number three, Israel is very expensive. And also we need to assist the new Olim by reducing life standard, or maybe focus on buying house or apartment. So these are the main issues that Jewish Agency right now focus. Also rehabilitation of the State of Israel in South and North, rehabilitation of those who are right now, the Israelis who are right now like refugees, about 150,000 Israelis that were taken from their home in the South, some of them from my family. 2 members from my family in Kibbutz Kfar Aza were killed. Nadav Goldstein Almog, 49 years old, and his daughter, Yam Goldstein Almog, 19 years old, was killed, and 4 was taken hostage. But the family still in Kibbutz Shfaim. Many Jews, Israelis from north of Israel also staying in hotel, motel, more than 6 months of this bloody war. So rehabilitation of the Israeli population, preparing them to get back. It's about small business support for soldiers. It's about victims of terror support. We give cash money to those victims of terror, 4,000 shekel, and more 25,000 shekel later. Resilience and mental treatment. We do a lot. Jewish Agency, more partnership. We do all over the world and mainly in Israel right now for continue building our beloved country.
So
state in the world.
Working inside Israel and outside Israel around the world, you really do have your work cut out for you, especially at this time. Doron Almog, chairman of the Jewish Agency for Israel, thank you so much for being with us here on the March of the Living.
Thank you, Alex. Maybe another point there, I must personally remind us. The first to be killed were disabled people and disabled children, those who were named retarded. I'm a father to a child who was born with severe brain injury. And I don't know if you're aware, but Hitler, Ymar Shmo, issued order named Tifo Aktia at the first day of Second World War, September 1st, 1939. And about 200,000 were gathered and killed in small destruction camps, a pilot of the big destruction camps like Auschwitz. And some of the remainders of Nazi's family volunteering in a village that we built for severely disabled children. They are saying we are here for Tikkun Olam. No more racism, no more discrimination. The family members of Nazis, we need to make Tikkun Olam.
A message of strength, a message of peace, a message of hope. Doron Almog, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Alex.
Marching today is also a delegation of TikTok creators from around the world who came here to bear witness to the Holocaust amid massive online anti-Semitic content on social media platforms. This unique delegation is very important at this time. Let's hear what members had to tell Alex.
Hi, we're here with 3 content creators with large followings on TikTok. Especially, we're here with Suzanne Siegert from Germany, with Shana Heidi, an Israeli content creator, and Daniel Braun, a South African and Israeli content creator. Thank you guys so much for being here with us on the March of the Living. Obviously, anybody that studied the Holocaust would see that propaganda was a major component that fed the anti-Semitism that ultimately led Jews towards concentration camps. And we're seeing just a hate fest of anti-Israel material on social media like TikTok and others. Tell me, Suzanne, what is your approach as a content creator to defending Israel?
From Germany, so of course it's important to talk about our history and to just educate, because I think a lot of times like bad comments I get, they come from people not knowing, and so when I tell them where, for example, conspiracy theory is coming from or hate is coming from, anti-Semitism is coming from, I think that a lot of the times that can change, just by educating people.
Shana, can you tell us a little bit about what it is to fight the algorithms on TikTok? We've seen that sometimes anti-Israel material can spread at 10 or 100 to 1 rate against pro-Israel content. How are you able to get your message out there?
So I can tell you that, first of all, we know that the algorithm, like, we're outnumbered. There are much more people using the platforms that are against Israel or against what's happening. We have ways around it. Like, if you make a good video and you make sure that people engage with your video, like if they comment, if they share and repost, then it will get higher and more people will see it. So you just have to make good content and ask your followers and people to engage with your videos.
Daniel, maybe you can tell me what type of feedback you've experienced on some of the content that you've created, and how do you deal with feedback, especially if it's not positive?
I've received, since starting content, making content about Israel and about Jewish people and about anti-Semitism, I've received thousands of death threats against me, against my family, but honestly, the positive comments and the comments from people that tell me that I uplift them and that what I'm doing is so important and the message that I'm spreading is so valuable to these people, to these Jewish people, that gives them hope and strength, that completely outweighs the negative comments and the death threats, and I wouldn't change a thing.
What's it like to be hearing the stories of Holocaust survivors and hearing the stories of what happened here in this camp in Auschwitz in particular, and how might that affect some of your content creation in the days and weeks ahead?
I mean, I'm super thankful that they still share the story, because I think they don't have to. But yeah, and for me, I also like to include it in my content as well, because I think like no numbers, no pictures speak to the followers, of course, as well as the testimonies of survivors do. And so I'm super thankful that I can also use them in my content.
Shana, we're obviously in a difficult situation now, dealing with the aftermath of October 7th. What does it mean for you to be here in a concentration camp, seeing what happened just 80 years ago to the Jewish people here in Europe, and how does that compare to what's taking place in Israel today?
Well, it's a very good question. First of all, I have half of my family was in the Holocaust, so coming here, first of all, it's been overwhelming. And after October 7th, I feel like we all needed this unity. We all needed to feel united and together. And I'm so it's overwhelmed and excited that we are going to be marching in a place where no one thought we would ever succeed to get out alive. And we are coming back stronger. And we need to just stay united, be together, and show the world that we're not going anywhere. Not after the Holocaust and not after October 7th.
There's so much Holocaust denial at the center of a lot of the anti-Semitic activity on social media, and also some denial of what's going on in Israel today, misinformation. Tell me, what percentage of information on social media that people consume do you think is reliable information, and how do content creators counter that?
I think a lot of the information being spread on social media right now is misinformation, especially on TikTok. I think other platforms have a good way of countering that with using fact checks and putting an actual disclaimer saying that this information isn't factual. I think TikTok could use that. I think they could add that to their platform. But a large percentage of the information on the internet right now is misinformation, and it's a big problem that we as content creators are struggling with, and that people in higher powers than us, because we are only the content creators, we do not control the app. They need to put their foot down and make a stand against the misinformation.
What is the opportunity that you see, though, in social media, even as it's an upward battle to getting good information out there?
I think just when you're at school, you have like a history lesson whenever your schedule says you have. But like with TikTok, it just comes into your For You page, and maybe you scroll like over 10 videos about it, but the 11th video, you really stick to the content. And I think that's really a great chance to reach people when they feel ready to.
Suzanne, Shana, Daniel, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for what you're doing and getting the word out on social media. Thank you for being with us here at March for the Living.
Anti-Semitism is on a mission to erase our Jewish identity, threatening our very existence. History is a stark reminder of the dangers this hatred poses. The horrors endured during the Holocaust by our grandparents and great-grandparents, including mine, are seared into our memories, compelling us to never forget. March of the Living stands as an important testament to history's enduring lessons. Last year, I was fortunate to take part in the march together with individuals from diverse backgrounds to bear witness to the consequences of unchecked hatred and anti-Semitism. To secure our future, we must learn from the past. Supporting March of the Living is supporting the fight against anti-Semitism. The time for your support is now.
If you notice, the March of the Living has just entered the grounds of Birkenau. Just over my shoulder, they're just now coming in. You can see the former Nazi guard towers. Also, right behind me, they're marching along the railway tracks, which were constructed particularly for the selection and the bringing of Hungarian Jews, specifically here to Birkenau, directly to their deaths. So the marchers are marching along those train tracks, and one of the cattle cars left from that era to transport those unfortunate people is still also off to the side. So it's a very somber march that people are participating in, yet there are glimpses of joy because, once again, this is the March of the Living. This is the march for people to remember such a terrible time and those who perished, but also it's a renewal of life and a continuation of the people who bear witness. We've learned from Holocaust survivors. We've come to these grounds to see it ourselves because you can study a lot about the Holocaust, but it's still very different to come to Auschwitz and Birkenau. And one thing you can't see, but right off on each side of where I am sitting right now are gas chambers and crematoria that were blown up. It's crematoria 1 and crematoria 2 are on either side of me. The Nazis blew them up before leaving in attempts to hide some of their crimes, but they didn't have time to eradicate all of the remainders, so you can actually see steps going down into chambers where the victims were forced to undress, then step a little further where they were gassed, and a little bit after that there were crematoria that were built, and the remainder is all around us. Let's now join Alex, who is marching with today's participants.
Well, one second. We're here with some Benot Shirut. In Israel, that a lot of women, young women, they go to national service in lieu of army service, and they're doing all kind of frameworks throughout the country. Now you guys are here on the March of the Living. It's a special time to be in Israel after October 7th. Tell me why you're here and why is this so important?
We are here to represent our country and to tell Am Israel Chai, it's not depend what been for us. We are here and we saying Am Israel Chai. Am Israel! Am Israel Chai! Am Israel! Am Israel! Am Israel Chai! Am Israel Chai! Am Israel Chai! Am Israel! Am Israel! Am Israel Chai! Od Avinu! Od Avinu! Od Avinu Chai! Od
That was a perfect example of the joy that you can catch glimpses of. And you do see that all day, particularly among the young people, to reaffirm life itself. If you look closely, you can see the different banners. You can see the different flags of the different nations who are participating. That, of course, is the Israeli delegation. You can see the Israeli flag waving there. You can see Army veterans, young people, leaders. They're now approaching where the ceremony will take place this afternoon, again along the railways. You can also see the Nazi guard towers, the barbed wire. That was electric barbed wire at one time. Anyone who touched it would be electrocuted to prevent escape. And of course the infamous gate. When most people think of the Holocaust, they think of that gate. Here now we have another delegation, also from Israel. The head of the delegation, the head of the march, as they arrive here. It was very hot today, so people are walking slowly. They're drinking lots of water because it is a long march. Of course, in today's conditions, nothing what it was like from 1941 to 1945, when people were forced to walk not clothed properly in the bitter Polish winter, in desperate heat during the summertime, being underfed, overworked, and suffering brutal abuse. Workers from Auschwitz would have to march to Birkenau to perform their so-called work, and they would work 12-hour shifts before having to march back to Auschwitz every night, every morning, every night. People who were forced into hard labor had to march to and from on a daily basis.
I'm afraid we're going to get moved.
The head of the delegation has just arrived at the end point. The end point, appropriately enough, is actually the end of the train tracks, where the train tracks transported hundreds of thousands to their deaths. In fact, 1.3 million people overall were exterminated here at Auschwitz. 1.1 of those, 1.1 million, were Jews. Now let's rejoin Alex as he makes his arrival here.
We're here with David Benson. You are third generation Holocaust survivor. Your grandmother, Sidonia Lax, participated in this trip at least 10 times, and you yourself have been on this trip now 8 times. Can you tell me, what brought your grandmother to come so many times on this trip, and what's brought you to come so many times on this trip, even now after your grandmother has passed away?
Sure. I think it really, starting with my grandmother, the importance of coming on the trip and really bearing witness to everything else, including her own experience, obviously, but telling her experience firsthand to all of the kids that come. I think my drive to come on the trip as well is very similar. I was with her in 2013 for the first time, and I made a commitment to her right in that moment that we were walking together in Majdanek, actually, and I committed to her that I would come back with her every year when she wanted to come, and when she wasn't able to, that I would come in her place. So I do that now. She passed 2 years ago, and I come on her behalf and I tell her story, as I did this morning, and I march on her behalf.
Does it feel different this year?
It feels different every year. I think every trip is a unique experience. Every trip, every kind of time I come here, I get something new from it. But I think definitely this year is unique for sure.
And what's your message to people when you tell your grandmother's story?
I think it's similar to the one we hear from a lot of people that come on this trip, is to always remember, never forget, and always make sure that we're telling the stories and that we're not losing any of the history.
And you can plan to continue coming year after year?
Absolutely.
David Benson, thank you so much for being with us here on March of the Living.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The co-founder of the International March of the Living now joins me here at Birkenau, Dr. Shmuel Rosenman. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, you've been here since the very beginning of March of the Living, from 1988. When you look back over all those years, what has changed?
2 things did not change. The surrounding area, the camp, the ruin, the crematorium did not change. People are changing. People are coming here, and everyone during the years, 36 years, are coming with a different kind of, I would say, carrying things on the shoulders. Remember, in 88, survivors were 50 years old. Now they're 100 years old.
Right.
And during this period of time, everyone gave his story message to different levels of people, and this changed.
How has that affected the entire mission of the International March of the Living?
Every year it's become more stronger. Every year we are getting far from the end of Second World War, from the Holocaust time, and every time you hear more stories in one end, but the diminishing of the survivors.
Right.
So in this interim, we get more stories, more things from the second generation, and people become much more attached to what is so-called an history of the Holocaust.
What causes you the greatest concern about these changes that you've just outlined for us?
My major concern is that sometimes I have the feelings that I failed, that we failed. We had more than 300,000 people here during this time.
That's right.
I'm assuming they outreached millions of people. So you would say, you are investing so much, energy, education, everything.
Right.
The world will change a little bit. And look around. Anti-Semitism sweeping all over the world. Hate, etc. So maybe we failed. Maybe we did not transfer the message what it's supposed to be. Because hate, bitter, okay, and anti-Semitism is prevailed more than it was 10 years ago.
I would like to just offer you a brief glimpse into how you have not failed. And that is my own personal story. My daughter attended March of the Living, transformed her life. She did it in 2011 as an Israeli teenager. Last year I came, my son came with me. It really, I think, impacted his life. And then I won't say who, but one of my producers who's here today met his wife because she came on March of the Living. His entire family wouldn't be here. So I'm going to say I understand your concern, but even in my personal surroundings, by people who are present on this stage, our lives were touched by March of the Living.
I'm very glad about your remark because, you know, when I said what I said before, I knew that you are going to say, hey, you cannot finish with a gloomy war. No, I'm a very optimistic person. But I'm saying, if this is the fact, it means we did not do enough. And the reasons that we are not doing enough, because we have to bring more in people, Jews and non-Jews alike. And I think more and more people come. And going back to the community and become influencers in all over places, this can be something, a kind of a light in the end of the tunnel.
The new technology, the emergence of all the new technology must be very encouraging to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We are upreaching millions of people in social media and other kind of things. Yeah.
I mean, the fact there are TikTokers here today,
TikTokers,
they have a huge reach.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Can you share one special moment, something that over the years has remained with you that truly did impact you?
Yes. One day, it was a soldier, a veteran, American veteran, which was Polish. Okay? And he was 75 years old. And here he said, I lost my entire family, 77 people from my entire family. And I did not, in this coming what we said before, I did not lose faith. And he got up and told the people, see me, I don't have anyone in the world. And I became a soldier, and I tried to do something to help some other people. I think what you're looking around is giving you, if we talk about off, a kind of, you are paving certain ways that people still believe that it's a chance that each other will say chazak, okay? Strong, strength, and the two ends will come together and maybe we'll be able to prevail.
From your lips to God's ears. Strength together.
Thanks.
Dr. Shmuel Rosenman, it's
This
been
is
a
the
pleasure.
strength.
This is the strength. Thank you for being here today. Let's now return to Alex. Let's look at the march and the people as they arrive.
We're here with Paul Goldenberg, who is the Chief Policy Advisor for the Rutgers Miller Center for Community Protection and Resilience and Center on Policing. This is not your first March for the Living. Tell me why you're here again and why it's so important to be here.
Yeah, this is probably my fourth year. The first two I came with my son. Last year was the first time working with Phyllis Heidemann and the Heidemann family that we decided to bring a large contingent of police chiefs here. With everything going on in the world, sometimes we forget that it's the police at the end of the day that are responsible for protecting not only the greater civil society, but in particularly the Jewish communities themselves.
It's difficult these days to be a police officer. We're seeing crime going up in all kinds of cities, hate crimes in particular, and particularly anti-Semitic hate crimes are skyrocketing. What can you tell me about your message to police chiefs and other policing organizations about how they maintain control in their communities?
You know, police chiefs are seeing the same thing that vulnerable communities have seen for ages and centuries. They themselves, not necessarily because of the color of their skin or their religion, but the uniform that they wear and what they represent, which are democratic values, and it's really the fabric that keeps us together as a country. So go the police. As we see standing in this place, the police were no longer a part of greater society, and we're tucked away into Nazism. So go the police, so goes our entire democratic values. So working with the police is more important for Jewish leaders, more important for leaders of any vulnerable community today than any other time in modern history. The police are under attack. The police are being murdered in the streets because of what they represent. The police are being called horrific names because of who they are, and they're also suffering PTSD at a greater rate than any other segment of society right now. So there is definitely a very close affiliation with how America's police are feeling right now, and I believe in my heart that they have a very keen understanding of how the Jewish community is feeling at this point in time.
Just in the last days and weeks, we've seen all kinds of protests and encampments on university campuses. Eric Adams, who's the mayor of New York City, reported that many of the people who were arrested from Columbia's campus encampment last week were outside agitators. Are you seeing a lot of agitators trying to create chaos at the campuses and in cities and in other communities?
Look, in my humble opinion, this is no longer about being pro-Palestinian or supporting a Palestinian state. In the United States of America, the right to protest and free speech, that's what we're based on. But there is no right for anyone to terrorize or put fear in the hearts and souls, particularly of Jewish students that are on campus right now. What I'm seeing right now is unprecedented. I have never seen a greater time in American history or in the 30-plus years that I've been in policing, how young students have fear for their safety. And it's no longer about whether someone has the right to free speech. When another group, in the name of a geopolitical event, goes after another group and terrorizes them with terroristic threats and chants for death, that absolutely is no longer just a civil right violation, but we're looking at potential hate crimes.
And what tools do police officers have to try to keep protest movements from getting violent, from getting out of control in cities?
Here's the problem. Many of the campuses are policed by either security departments or by campus police departments, all trying to do their best out there, all doing really good jobs, but they are not getting the support necessarily of the campus administrators and executives. And I don't think that the campus administrators themselves, who are very smart people with a lot of PhDs, quite understand the roles and responsibilities of what a police department under their tutelage can or cannot do. And some of these campus administrators and are overstepping their bounds, and they're not letting their police do what they need to do. If a law is broken, that completely changes the rules of engagement from free speech, or changes the rules of engagement for peaceful protest. If laws are broken, the police need to do what they are trained to do, and that is to execute arrests, and that is to stop whatever is happening at that time that is putting others in fear for their lives, particularly right now, Jewish students.
Paul Goldenberg, thank you for everything you're doing to protect the Jewish community in America. Stay safe out there, and thank you for being here on the March of the Living.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and it's an honor to serve here.
What an inspiring interview. Let's now take another look at all of the participants as they arrive. Tens of thousands, they're getting closer and closer. Many are, again, wrapped in the Israeli flag. I've also seen the American flag wrapped around participants as they make their way to the ceremonial grounds where the official ceremony will take place a short time from now. Will there be many performances, speeches made at the culmination of the March of the Living? We now wait for each of the participants to arrive. And when we talk about the Holocaust, it's interesting to delve into the usage and the etymology of the word itself. In English, Holocaust actually originated from Greek, and it meant a burnt offering, in apparent reference to the incinerations of victims' bodies. The term Holocaust incorporates also the non-Jewish victims, such as the Roma, the Sinti people, Soviet prisoners of war, Polish civilians. Many Poles died here as well, as they had been deemed as Untermenschen by the Nazis. They were intended for slave labor purposes. Jehovah's Witnesses were also murdered here. So Holocaust in general incorporates all those people. Now in Israel, the Hebrew term is predominantly used, that is Shoah. Shoah is a Hebrew word which can be translated into English as a catastrophic destruction. And it is used exclusively for the Jewish genocide in Hebrew. Now the Nazis, the perpetrators, of course, used the term final solution in their attempts to eradicate every last Jew on earth. They called it the final solution to the Jewish question. Let's now go to another interview that Alex carried out this morning at Auschwitz.
We're here with Ellen Gaminder. You are the daughter of Bob Gaminder. You're also a good friend with Gabriela Karine, who we just interviewed here on this program. This is your second March of the Living. Tell me what brings you here again?
Well, I feel like it's my duty, actually, to carry on my dad's memories and his stories of how he survived, and then truly the remarkable things that he did after the war.
And what did he do after the war to help spread memory of the Holocaust?
So while my grandparents were alive, he didn't really speak. After they passed away, he became a teacher at the age of 70 and started speaking at junior high schools and high schools. And then, as time goes on, there are less and less survivors. So he and Gabriela became the celebrity Holocaust survivor couple, and they were speaking all over the world, really.
And now, as a second-generation Holocaust survivor, do you feel that the torch has been passed over to you, and how do you bear that responsibility?
It's really tough. I thought my dad did such a great job. How will I ever do it? But I told his story the other night, and it gets smoother each time. I do feel the obligation to keep the memories going.
And how does coming on a trip like March of the Living help you in your campaign to spread Holocaust education?
Well, I think that just even coming here is enough, and just being able to tell other people what it's like, truly.
Ellen Gaminder, thank you so much for being with us here on March of the Living.
Thank you so much.
As I mentioned earlier, we are now on each side of where I am sitting, and you can't quite see them, but are the remains of two of the crematoria that were in Birkenau. It's interesting to note that altogether there were 5 crematoria in Auschwitz-Birkenau that all operated at different times, sometimes simultaneously. There were even plans for a 6th, but there wasn't enough time for the Nazis to construct that before the end of the war. Historians say that at a maximum, around 12,000 people at a time could be gassed during the peak of the killing, while the crematoria were capable of burning 4,416 corpses per day. 1,440 in each of the crematoria 2 and 3, and 768 in each of the crematoria 4 and 5. It's beyond comprehension. Another thing that's interesting to note is that we refer to today as Holocaust Remembrance Day, but it is only in Israel. The rest of the world marks International Holocaust Day on January 27th. The reason is that the Israeli Remembrance Day is marked according to the Hebrew calendar, and today is the 27th of Nisan. The International Holocaust Day was chosen for the dates to commemorate the date that Auschwitz and Birkenau were liberated by the approaching Soviet troops on the 27th of January 1945. Now we return to another interview that Alex Trayman brings us.
We're here with Ziv Zellinger, who's the senior emissary for the Jewish Agency for Israel. You oversee campus emissaries in Europe. And we have here Emma Sherrard, who is the incoming Holocaust educator for the Union of Jewish Students. You're in London, but you're overseeing Holocaust education across the UK college campuses. Thank you so much for coming on March of the Living. We are seeing now how difficult it is for students on university campuses around the world to express pro-Israel positions, to even feel safe as Jews on campus. Tell me how your work has changed since October 7th.
So all of the Jewish Agency Shlichim are working on campuses across Europe, and they see a spike in anti-Semitism, that all students feel like they're threatened and they have to hide their identity. So in the past, if they were able to openly express their Jewish identity, now they feel like they can only do it in a closed room, and they're really afraid of being exposed by other students on campus because of it. So the work we do is we really try to make them feel more comfortable, to support them and provide them with resources and educational materials to help them cope in those difficult times.
Emma, you're a Holocaust educator. Tell me how important it is to come on a trip like March of the Living to, further your own knowledge about the Holocaust, and what message will you take here from Auschwitz and pass on to the students in university campuses where you are working?
Holocaust education is hugely vital to the existence of Jewish people forever. We are currently standing in a place of pure destruction and misery and defeat, and instead we have thousands of Jewish people here who are celebrating the fact that we're still alive, and we have Holocaust survivors here to show us that message. And I think the biggest thing that we can learn from that is be proud. Stand up, be loud. Students shouldn't be afraid. If we're hiding our identity, we need to do our best to make sure that we aren't afraid and that actually something like this never happens again.
How powerful is it for you to speak with Holocaust survivors here? There's 55 Holocaust survivors on this trip. What imprint does that leave on you, on your soul, and in your work as an educator?
Holocaust survivors are some of the most unbelievable people I've ever met. I have very close survivors to my heart who I have adopted like grandparents, and just talking to them, seeing their positivity, people who have gone through the worst that life can offer you, and instead are positive, enthusiastic, and optimistic, are a huge life lesson to all of us, that we should have that positivity through everything that we do and treat everything that we go through like a lesson and move forward to something better.
Ziv, how many emissaries do you have across Europe, and what kind of tools are you able to give them to help Jewish students?
So across Europe we have 10, but all over the world we have over 100, majority of them in the United States. The kind of tools we provide them, a lot of educational resources, and our Shlichim are leading the battle on many of those campuses with all the campaigns against anti-Semitism and against the BDS movement. So we provide them with all the tools that they need to be able to really fight that and support the Jewish students on their campuses and create alliances to the best of of their abilities.
Ziv Zellinger, Emmer Sherrard, thank you so much for being here with us on the March of the Living.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Emotion is really on the rise as we watch all of the participants arrive here for the final ceremony. We see delegations from all over the world. Earlier I saw a delegation from Greece. I saw a group of teenagers from Los Angeles wearing very vivid T-shirts to mark their group. You can spot flags and banners from different countries from literally around the world. Many come here with a great deal of knowledge and education about the Holocaust. Others who are young teenagers are just beginning to learn about the Holocaust, and coming here puts everything into perspective and again really makes a huge impact to be here. Let's now go to an interview that Alex carried out a short time ago in the midst of the procession.
Rabbi Dov Klein, you are the Chabad emissary in Evanston, is that right, in Illinois, and you're also the rabbi of the International AEPI, which is the largest Jewish fraternity on university campuses. How many AEPI brothers are here on this march?
Oh, there must be hundreds of our brothers here and thousands of our alumni. We just nonstop meeting people throughout this entire week. It's amazing to see the solidarity. Number one for Israel, but so much of the understanding and the feeling for what today is, and being here in Auschwitz, commemorating 6 million people who lost their lives. This is something that touches the very core of who we are, because if you save a life, you save an entire world. And throughout this week, we learned about so many people here that have saved Jews, but over here now we're commemorating those who passed.
Now, this is obviously a very difficult time for students on university campuses, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of reports of intimidation and even occasionally violence on university campuses. What's AEPI doing in order to try to strengthen the Jewish community, Jewish student life on campus at a time when it's so difficult?
AEPI is on the forefront right now in terms of combating a lot of these protesters, working with administrations to make sure that Jewish students are safe and secure. We're so proud of our AEPI brothers who are leading, who are out there in the counter-protests and saying, hey, we're not scared, we're not going anywhere, this is our university, this is our home, and we're going to continue to be Jewish and proud to be Jewish, and we're going to continue to support Israel and be proud to be a Zionist and be proud to that, because we understand that Jewish and Israel is intertwined, and you cannot take that away from us, and we won't let you take that away from us. It's amazing about how many of our students are out there just doing the positive. I myself was there when our encampment went up, and what they were singing and saying, number one, they were saying, how many Jews did you kill today? They were screaming from the river to the sea. Those are the things that we hear constantly. But they were also screaming, the final solution is now. We're saying back, release the hostages. We're saying back, never forget is now.
Rabbi Dov Klein, thank you so much for being with us here on March for the Living.
Thank you so much for having me.
Next up, we have another interview that Alex carried out earlier today at Auschwitz with Pastor Larry Hutch, who, together with his wife Liz, they're the founders and senior pastors of the New Beginnings Church, which the mission of which is to stand with Israel and to help bring down barriers between Christians and Jews. Also joining in that interview is the leader of the Keren HaYesod organization, Sam Grunberg.
I'm here with Sam Grunberg, who is the world chairman of Keren HaYesod, and also with Pastor Larry Huck of the New Beginnings Church and also the Pastor Larry Huck Ministries. Sam, Keren HaYesod, one of the largest non-governmental agencies in Israel. You've been working with Pastor Huck for a long time, and you've also been a veteran of this trip. Tell me why you're here again and what you're doing in 2024.
Sure, Alex. So Keren HaYesod is one of Israel's 4 founding national institutions, working in 60 campaigns or Jewish communities around the world in 45 countries. And I've been in my position now for 5.5 years, and Pastor Larry Huck and his ministries have been working with Keren HaYesod for at least a decade and been involved in Israel for longer than that. And this is actually the second time that Pastor Larry has come on March of the Living. And this year, he brought with him and is leading, under the auspices of Keren Hayesod, is leading a delegation from his church of leaders to come and to see and to experience and to stand up for Israel and to learn and to bear witness.
Pastor Huck, it's a difficult time around the world for Jews. We're seeing scenes on university campuses, anti-Israel protests in the cities, a lot of hatred on social media. And you would get the sense as an Israeli looking at what's taking place that Americans are not supportive of Israel the way they used to be. But I believe that you represent a different delegation, a different demographics of people. Tell me a little bit about what you think the support for Israel in the United States looks like right now.
Yeah, Alex, you know, in every interview we've done, we say what you're seeing on the media, what you're seeing at these college campuses, these guys are the loud minority. The majority of people in America love Israel, love the Jewish people, hate what we're seeing with anti-Semitism, not only in America, but with England, Europe, Australia. And one of the reasons why we came here is to make a stand and let people know, let Israel know, and let the Jewish people know around the world that we will not tolerate anti-Semitism, that we will not give any place, whether you're a religious leader, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a politician, if you're not standing up for Israel and standing against anti-Semitism, your silence is speaking loud words. And so we want to let everybody know, especially our Jewish friends in Israel and around the world, is that we are going to stand up loud. We're going to make our voices known. We're letting every politician we know that if you don't stand up with Israel, we'll make sure you're not a leader in America anymore.
Oh, that's very powerful. Tell me, do you think that the lessons that you learn when you walk around this place, that people in America really understand those lessons today, 80 years later?
You know, I really don't. And I think that's what I think God's given me the job. We have a television program that's on every day around the world in many different ways. And every day we tell people, we educate people about the Jewish people, about the nation of Israel, not just their biblical right to have the land, but political right and historical right to that land. And so what we're seeing in the evangelical world is a great awakening. The eyes of the Gentiles, as the Torah says, the eyes of the Gentiles are being opened. And I feel it a great honor that God has given me in my heart the mission to let the evangelical world know, let the Gentile world know the true history of not only Israel, but what happened here. And, you know, Alex, if I can say, and I'm very proud to say it out loud. When I came here last year and I heard the stories about some Christians hiding Jews in their basement or hiding Jews behind hidden walls, I want everybody to know that's never going to happen again. We are not going to hide Jews in our basements. We're not going to hide Jews behind hidden walls. We're going to come out in God's great sunlight, stand shoulder to shoulder with every Jew, stand heart to heart, stand spirit to spirit, and we will say, and I hate to use this cliche, never again. And especially since October 7th, I went to Israel right after October 7th, met with Keren Hayesod because we started hearing in the media it didn't really happen, it's not as bad. And I want everybody to understand the media was wrong in what happened, because when we went there, Sam and I went there, I realized it was much worse than we understood. And so we want to get the word out that Israel not only has the right to protect themselves, they have the obligation to let their citizens live in peace. And as evangelicals, as Christians, we're going to stand up with every Jewish person around the world and say, you have a right to live without terror.
Sam, you've invested a lot of energy into maintaining and strengthening the relationship between Israel and pro-Israel Christians, particularly in the United States and around the world. Tell me why you spend so much time working together with this community.
Well, Alex, it's so important, you know, the history, the shared values, the Judeo-Christian values, and the fact that we have such a difficult history, and to have leaders like Pastor Larry, and there are not enough of them. As a matter of fact, here on March of the Living, I'm not sure that we've seen, there are other Christians, I'm not sure that we've seen other Christian leaders. But it's so important to walk shoulder to shoulder with our Christian friends and to understand not to hide and sweep under the carpet the difficult past that we had, but to learn about it and to correct it going forward. You know, Pastor Larry, even before October 7th, for years, and his ministry and his friends have been supporting his community. They've been supporting Israel. They've been supporting Aliyah. They've been supporting Holocaust survivors. They helped with the emergency we had in Ukraine and the surge in Aliyah that we saw. And now, since October 7th, have absolutely stepped up to the plate, came here immediately, as you heard, to Israel, to see, to hug, to embrace, and they are really so dedicated. And it's very important that other like-minded Christian leaders around the world see that example, follow that example, and that together that we can really correct the horrors of the past.
And obviously, Karen Hayesota does an address to help make that happen. Sam Grunberg, Pastor Larry Huck, thank you so much for being with us here on the March for the Living.
Thank you, Alex.
Let's now go to Alex for an interview with the Multi-Faith Group.
So we're standing here with some state troopers from the state of New Jersey, where I grew up. I tried to avoid you for a few years. Thank God I didn't kill anybody and I didn't get arrested. So it's good to be here with you. You know, it's very difficult to police Jewish communities right now. We're seeing a rise in anti-Semitic crimes and hate crimes of all kinds. You know, in cities and states all around the world. Tell me why you're here and what you think officers can learn from being on a trip like this.
Well, thank you. Well, we had a delegation here last year for the first time, and we read a proclamation at this event and promised to bring our younger troopers and officers back to teach about the Holocaust and when the voice of the voiceless don't do that and don't step up and do the right thing. So, and then October 7th happened. Both Detective Malik and Sergeant First Class Zelson here said, why don't we bring Muslim troopers and Jewish troopers together in the room in the wake of this, understanding we may have differences of opinions, but when we put this on, that we're serving those most vulnerable amongst us. So to have Muslim troopers, Jewish troopers, to be representing our state and certainly our country, hopefully it was a march of solidarity for us today, and just completely honored and humbled to do it.
And what were the feelings that you had walking around Auschwitz and going through the barracks and now coming on this march?
Words are very hard to describe. It's so tragic what occurred, and to walk through the same places and have our feet walk over the places where things happened so many years ago. I think the most important thing here is to recall that we'll never forget. And we actually all wrote, "We will never forget" on one sign, and all the troopers signed it. Because genuinely, truly, even after it happened, look at how many people from around the world are here today in solidarity to show support for what happened.
And I see on your pin here you have the letters WTC, World Trade Center. I was in New York at that time. Obviously something that Americans never forget, and they saw a taste. America saw a taste of what happens when extremists try to take out, their initiatives, their evil on innocent civilians. Tell me why you have that pin with World Trade Center.
Yeah, any trooper who served during 9/11 has that WTC. If you see one without, means like Modessa here wasn't in the force when that happened. But it is our way of remembering and thinking of all those first responders that we lost that day. And even this year, we just lost 2 of our retired troopers to 9/11 cancer, and they'll be on the wall in Washington, D.C. So that attack from 23 years ago still takes from us today. And I think, similarly, the Holocaust still draws from us today, still takes from us when you experience the kind of inhumanity that happened here. So we just, as Mud said, we won't forget.
And as a Jewish state trooper, obviously, New Jersey is one of the largest Jewish communities in the United States, also a large Muslim community. People live together. Tell me, what's your takeaway here from the March of the Living?
Wow. Well, to see everyone here supporting, especially everything that's going on right now. This is the show of support, the remembrance, the not forgetting, being with my fellow troopers is extremely important. The takeaway is extremely humbling, and something that I'm going to have to think more about over the next few days about how this affected me. And then you asked in the beginning what we're going to do to come back. We're going to work together, continue to work together hand in hand within our communities and and come and build more relationships within the communities.
Tell me, how important is law enforcement at this time? We're seeing rising crime all over the United States. It's not easy to be a police officer, I think, maybe harder now than ever. Tell me how you maintain resolve and what you're doing to make it good to be a police officer, to maintain law and order in New Jersey.
Yeah, I think we've taken, for the state police, it's been over 103 years of service. That role that we serve in society. People call 911 because they're having a bad day and they want us to bring calm to chaos and resolution to their conflict at every scale, from the worst imaginable to the smashed mailbox. But when somebody shows up in this uniform, I trust that the women and men that show up are compassionate and will treat all of those people that we serve with a dignity and a respect, which we didn't obviously see back in the 40s here.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us here on March of the Living.
Thank you.
Official announcers are now asking the participants to take their seats ahead of the beginning of the official ceremony. People have mostly arrived at this point, including Alex Trayman. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Aaron. So nice to be here.
I'll bet. How was the march this year?
Well, the march, I think, was very special. Definitely took on a totally different meaning just 7 months after October 7th. This was the first topic that was on everybody's minds. And you'd think that there would be a feeling of depression. Seeing the death camp at Auschwitz and here at Birkenau, and knowing that the same hatred that fueled the Holocaust just 80 years ago is fueling the enemies of the Jewish people today as well. But surprisingly, I didn't find even one depressed person throughout the entire march. It was a very joyous march. There were tons of smiles, tons of singing of Am Yisrael Chai. People just felt like a real spirit that the Jewish people live, and that these moments, that the Holocaust, that October 7th are moments that are part of our history, but they're moments that really just make the Jewish people stronger somehow or another, even if they don't understand why.
How very meaningful that really is. And of course, we saw some of that ourselves as we were watching the incredible spirit. Now, of course, today's events actually began in Budapest last night. You were there. Tell us about the event that took place and the significance of that.
Right. The March of the Living is not a one-day event. In fact, thousands of people went to different places. Some people were this past several days in Warsaw, others in Krakow. I was in Budapest, and yesterday we actually had a march, and 5,000 people marched from the Great Synagogue, the Doheny Synagogue, which is one of Europe's largest synagogues in central Budapest, and we marched to the central train station of Budapest, and during the summer months. Yeah, the Kaleti train station. And during the summer months of 1944, about 550,000 Jews from the Hungarian community were marched to that train station and took train directly from Budapest here to Auschwitz. And in fact, several hundred students, Hungarian students, actually took a train ride at the end of that march yesterday, a 12-hour train and sleeper cars all the way to Auschwitz today. But I want to tell you just a little bit about the march, because there was about 5,000 people that were parading down the central boulevard in central Budapest. And the only thing that crossed my mind was that to anybody that was watching or saw, was a spectator, it just looked like a pro-Israel rally, basically. And I think that most people watching would not know the significance of the 80-year history of the liquidation of the Jewish community there. And what was so interesting about it, and even unlike what we saw in this march, 5,000 people marching with Israeli flags, same spirit, down the central path in Budapest. There was not a singular protest. There was no protest whatsoever. It was probably the only capital in all of Europe where you could imagine that there wouldn't even be the slightest hint of any kind of hostile protest, anti-Israel protest at all.
How encouraging that must have been.
Well, not encouraging to think what would have happened if this march was taking place in London right now, or in Paris, or in New York. But
New York.
But a lot of credit to the people of Hungary, to the leadership of Hungary, for being a strong and important ally of the State of Israel. And even though Hungary has, like many countries in Europe, its own past with anti-Semitism today, we just didn't see it at all in that march yesterday.
I want to mention just briefly that Joining us here today is an 82-year-old Holocaust survivor from Hungary. Her name is Marian Miller. She was born in Budapest in 1942. And during the ceremony itself, she's going to join an Israeli singer called Tal Sandak in performing a musical rendition of a poem that her cousin wrote the music for. Her cousin was only 13 years old when he was murdered on the edge of the Danube River. In addition to the mass gassings at Auschwitz-Birkenau of Hungarian Jews, tens of thousands were either shot to death on the banks of the Danube River or died en route to the death march to Austria. In fact, on the Danube River today, there is a very, very moving statue that is symbolic of when the Nazis and their Hungarian Arrow Cross collaborators held mass executions in Budapest between November 1944 and January 1945. Alex, I understand that this is something you looked at yourself.
Yeah, Aaron, we were at a ceremony marking the shooting of, like you said, thousands of Jews right on the banks of the Danube, and there is a very poignant monument there of bronze shoes built into the wall that is right up on the edge of the Danube River.
And why shoes? Tell us why the shoes.
Because they were, a lot of the Jews were asked to remove their shoes before
they were stripped naked. They were stripped naked before their executions, and the shoes are there as a reminder of these people who perished there, who were either shot or, even more horrifically, the Arrow Cross often went in the wintertime when the river was frozen solid. They drilled holes into the ice and they pushed through living human people, Jews, little kids, and they were forced to strip naked in that bitter winter cold, and all that was left along the banks were their shoes.
Some of them were even tied together, and there was the
victims.
Thinking there of the victims were tied together, and the thinking was that a Jew wasn't even worth a single bullet. So they would tie them together and then shoot one, and because they were tied together, when the one would fall in, so they would pull others with them to their deaths off the Danube River in 1944.
It's really inconceivable. What was it like for you to look? I've seen photographs of this sculpture. I've often wanted to see it, and I've studied very much about the history of Hungarian Jews. What was it like for you to stand there?
Well, you know, there was a lot of very moving symbols in Hungary, but if you were there and you didn't know what it was and you looked down, there's a little plaque, and the plaque says that this monument was there to commemorate victims that were killed by armed militiamen in 1944. So it doesn't even mention Jews, and it doesn't mention that they were killed by Hungarian Nazis. So, I think you have to understand the symbolism to know the history in order to take in, what you're seeing there.
Let's turn back to where we are today here in Poland. And again, the official ceremony is about to start. How many times have you visited here, and what have you found to be the most moving aspects of the official ceremony?
Well, this is the third March of the Living that I've participated on. And, here we are in Birkenau, and if you look behind me, it's something like 100 football fields worth of flat space where 1.1 million Jews were killed in a very short period of time. But just 3 kilometers away from here is the Auschwitz concentration camp. And many people have seen the concentration camp in movies, in historical videos, and it feels a little bit like a movie set. But the other thing that it feels like when you're walking around, and this is a feeling that I had already in my first time here in 2019, was that it feels like an Ivy League university campus. The way you have these brick buildings laid out among the grass, and you have the brick laying on the sidewalks, and just to see what's going on in the Ivy League university campuses today, and to feel that Auschwitz, feels viscerally, and again, this is a feeling I had way before October 7th. It feels like a university campus. So a strange parallel between what we're experiencing these weeks on university campuses and what took place over 80 years ago in Auschwitz.
It's interesting to point out that unless someone has visited here and unless they are aware of it, Auschwitz it had originated as, well, the Nazis took over some Polish army barracks that were right outside of Oświęcim in Polish, which they then called Auschwitz. And the original buildings are still standing. Well, the Nazis refurbished and they renovated and they enlarged those barracks and for the functioning for their purposes. But Auschwitz has been preserved as a museum. You can go into each building that you referred to, which are called blocks by number, and different blocks where medical experimentation took place or gassings. But Birkenau here is open. It's a place of contemplation. Don't you?
Correct, yes. A lot of the buildings have been destroyed, and just about 100 meters to our side, you can see the concentration camps which were bombed. Yes, a lot of deep contemplation to think how many Jews died in such a small place in such a short period of time.
I think the contrast between the two is also, I think it was well thought out, that here you can walk quietly where so many people were murdered, and especially the Hungarian Jews, in just the span of a few months. I mean, it's just shocking. Do you think that you can, until this day, truly comprehend the massive attempted genocide here?
I mean, it was more than an attempt. This was a systematic extermination of
They didn't
the Jewish
succeed.
people.
They didn't succeed.
They
but
succeeded to a
technically
large
you're
extent. I mean,
correct.
that's why we're celebrating here, commemorating here. And it's very hard to wrap your head around what actually took place here. You can come here many times and you leave just as disturbed each time as the time before. And perhaps that's what draws me back to participate in this march again and again, because we can never forget. And what's so wonderful is to see more and more people recognizing the importance of studying this horrific moment in the history of the Jewish people, and realizing that if we don't learn what happened to us in the past, we will never be able to prevent it from happening again.
Very good point. I think that we are getting ready to now go over to the start of the official ceremony. Is it underway? I'm looking for someone to let me know. It's going to start any moment now, so.
About 3,000 people here today on the march. It's really a beautiful day here. I've participated in the march when it's been colder, when it's been raining, which I think is part of the experience that a lot of the Jews that suffered through the Holocaust had to go through the bitter winters of Poland. This year, because it's a leap year in the Jewish calendar and we have an extra month of spring, the Holocaust Memorial Day is actually taking place in early May. It's a beautiful spring day here, and I think that's part of what is contributing to the warm atmosphere among many of the participants.
Earlier I was... The ceremony is now getting underway. Let's go there directly.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Maisel, and on behalf of the International March of the Living, I welcome you to this afternoon's Yom HaShoah ceremony. Holocaust Remembrance Day is a day of remembering the past, but this year is also one of looking with trepidation and concern at the present and to the future. This year we stand here in Birkenau at the place where over 1 million Jews were tortured, starved, murdered and burnt alive, and we make a solemn commitment to combat anti-Semitism, racism and hatred. Today we are privileged to be joined by 55 Holocaust survivors from Israel, from Europe, from Canada, from the United States and from Australia, each one a beacon of hope, of courage and of resilience. Of the 10 Holocaust survivors coming from Israel, 6 survived the massacre in southern Israel on October the 7th. I invite our honored Holocaust survivors to please rise so we can thank you by name personally for helping create a new generation of witnesses. Please stand, survivors. Paul Alexander, Peter Baruch, Walter Bingham, Esther Fairblom, Gabor Faludi, Gabor Fedrid, Gaborne Fedrid, Barbara Maria Frankis, Renee Friedman, Danit Gabay, Alfred Garwood, Jacqueline Glixman, Herschel Greenblatt, Bella Chaim, Alan Hall, Peter Hallas, Yvonne Hallas, Diak Yashnone, Matyashne Yavor, Gabriela Karin, Aviva Kainan, Friedrich Korodi, Gabor Kovac, Yves Kugler, BEM, Eva Cooper, Peter Lantos, MBE, Nate Leipziger, Daniel Luz, Marianne Miller, Gierdni Mishuv, Susanna Moore, Georgine Nash, Dr. Ernone Nod, Sol Naiman, Karol Pojgoy, Ferenc Pojgai, Shomer Rozashine, Shmil Berku, Tomasz Neshalgo, Miklosh Neshain, Ferenc Yosef Neshelek, Laszlo Seli, Iran Shasha, Tiborna Shimon, Judy Solomon, Marietta Spieler, Rita Starkman, Martin Stern, MBE, Paul Zass, Mala Tribich, MBE, Judith Samir, Agnes Udvori, Yenu Udvori, Dr. Agnes Varne, Jacques Wieser, MBE, Silly Wenkert, and finally Susan Winter. To our survivors, thank you. Thank you for your bravery, for your courage, and for keeping the torch of Holocaust memory alive. And I would like to ask everybody to please remain standing, to please stop with the applause as we rise for 1 minute memorial siren in memory of those who perished here during the Holocaust. Please be seated. Since 1988, over 300,000 participants from around the globe, Jews and non-Jews alike, have marched alongside Holocaust survivors from Auschwitz I to Auschwitz II Birkenau, honoring the immense loss suffered by the Jewish people and all humanity. We continue to march with a commitment to pass the torch of memory and responsibility from the survivors' generation to the next generation. I am pleased to call...
אל נקמות אדוני, אל נקמות הופיע. הנשא שופט הארץ, השב גמול על גאים. עד מתי רשעים אדוני? עד מתי רשעים יעלוזו? יביעו, ידברו עתק, יתאמרו כל פועלי אבן. עמך אדוני ידכאו ונחלתך יענו. אלמנה וגר יהרגו, ויתומים ירצחו. ויאמרו לא יראה יה, ולא יבין אלוהי יעקב.
I am pleased to call the President of the International March of the Living, Mrs. Phyllis Greenberg Heidemann, to the stage.
Advocates for the future. Advocates for the future. That is what each and every one of you became today when you decided to come on the 2024 International March of the Living. That is what has become of you now, that you have had the privilege of bearing witness to the past at the very sites of death and destruction of the community of which you are a member. That is what has become of you now, that we together have lost our innocence to the truth and veracity of this chapter in Jewish history and in the ongoing persecution of a people, our people, simply because of our birth. And as you will now see in video, in music, and in words, the events of October 7th and its aftermath are a modern-day conundrum, a modern-day continuum of the very events we come here each year to remember and to commemorate. So it is my privilege, on behalf of our chairman and the board of directors of the International March of the Living, to say to Minister Kish, to Ambassador Livni, the members of Knesset, and the esteemed clergy from many faiths who have joined us today, to the dignitaries and university presidents who have also honored us with your presence, I ask that you do all you can to face, to combat, and to help eradicate anti-Semitism, all the while protecting each one of our children on your campuses and in your cities and towns. To the adults here, I ask that you please remember what you have seen here today and teach those lessons that you learned to your children and to their children so that they too can come to understand the importance of memory in our ongoing struggle. To the Jewish students, I ask that you firmly embrace your birthright and stand solid and strong and proud as defenders of our heritage and our very right to live, to survive, and to thrive. And to those of you from faiths other than Jewish, I ask each one of you to embrace the meaning of human compassion and understanding for all. To our devoted educators at the March of the Living, we thank you for your commitment to so diligently teach, train, embrace, and engage the next generation of advocates who we know will carry the torch of memory long into the future. To the TikTok influencers who are here on the grounds with us today, I ask that you use your voice, the power of your voice, to promote truth and the very meaning of the history lesson that I hope that you learned during your journey in Budapest and now in Poland with us. To the members of our international, our multinational law enforcement delegation, on behalf of everyone gathered here today and all those at home, we say thank you for the work that you do to protect. To Rav Lau and to all his fellow survivors who are gathered here with us, and on whose very shoulders each one of us are privileged and blessed to stand. You have so bravely led us on this journey of memory and commitment for so long, and we pray for your continued strength to remain as our guiding light. I pray, I hope, that we can all leave this place today even more committed to work together and create a brighter, a better, a wiser, more compassionate global narrative free of anti-Semitism. We shall not rest peacefully until all our hostages are free from their captivity, and we shall and we promise, young, middle, and old alike, to carry the torch of memory on behalf of all those who no longer have voice. For there is no place at all for hatred in a society determined to endure. And we, the Jewish people, are determined to endure. Am Yisrael Chai.
And now a video message from the President of the State of Israel, Mr. Yitzhak Isaac Herzog.
Honored leaders, dignitaries, and friends from around the world, I'm very pleased to share a few words with you from the President's residence in Jerusalem in honor of this year's March of the Living. Many years after surviving the Holocaust of European Jewry, the great Yiddish poet and partisan fighter, Avraham Sotzkover, asked a simple question in a poem he entitled Was wird bleiben? What will remain? What will remain, he asked. It was not a question only about death and loss, but about what can survive beyond them. What does remain? What can remain after humankind has slaughtered and destroyed, abducted, scorched, raped, after humanity seems to have lost what makes it human? So, dear friends, gathering today from across the world, you say clearly here today, we remain, we live, and no matter what kind of hatred or brutality we may meet, who we are and what we stand for will always remain. Netzach Israel lo yeshaker. My friends, this year, the darkest tragedies of our past do not feel so distant. Although the Holocaust stands alone in the history of human crimes, we have been grieving deep tragedy over the past months. The sickness of blind hatred has been unleashed once again in our own world and time. Anti-Zionism and anti-Israel sentiment have become a cover for age-old anti-Semitism, for that unique hatred that has destroyed so much for so many, so very many times in history. Right now, in these moments, the blindness of hatred is scorching our earth. The blindness of hatred has driven the enemies of the Jewish people and of the State of Israel to slaughter and torture, to pillage and destroy, to rape and abduct, what I call the Hamassacre. And the cries of our brothers and sisters, the slaughtered and the tortured, the beaten and the raped, the abducted, who remain in captivity, still call to us. They call to us for justice and for freedom. They call to us for the simple right to life. My friends, may your march go forth proudly this year. May it carry the history of everyone who has ever fought for justice and humanity in the face of hatred. And may it send a resounding call for freedom for every last hostage, for the values of justice, humanity, and democracy and life across the world. Thank you, friends. Shalom vetoda miYerushalayim habnuya.
My name is Benedek Puporka.
My name is Bodza Bodrogi, and we represent the Hungarian March of the Living delegation.
Yesterday, thousands of people marched in Budapest in memory of the Hungarian Jewish community destroyed in the Shoah.
80 years ago, within just a few weeks, over 500,000 Hungarian Jews, including babies, children, and the elderly, were transported here by train, with most of them meeting their tragic end in the crematoria.
Last night, in their memory, 500 students, accompanied by community leaders, embarked from Budapest on the train of the living, retracing the same journey taken by the Hungarian Jews 80 years ago.
It was a night of commemoration, reflection, and a collective commitment to remember our Jewish brothers and sisters who were murdered here. For as long as we live, they too will live in our hearts and our actions. They will never ever be forgotten.
Torches will now be lit. The first torch will be lit in memory of the 565,000 Hungarian Jews who perished in the Shoah. I am honored to invite Mr. Gabor Gordon, Chairman of the March of the Living Hungary, to join Benedek and Borja. The Jewish community in the land of Israel also joined the war against the Nazis by sending a group of 37 paratroopers on missions to Nazi-occupied Europe. One of them was Hannah Senesh, a young woman who left Hungary after experiencing severe anti-Semitism at high school. She immigrated to the land of Israel in 1939 and on 1944 was sent to rescue Hungarian Jews, including her family, that were about to be sent to their deaths in Auschwitz. On November the 7th, 1944, Hannah Senesh was executed by firing squad after being arrested by the Nazis. In 1942, seating on a beach in Israel, looking at the beauty and not knowing what was going to happen, she wrote, Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer le'olam. O Lord, my God, I pray that the beauty never ends. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of humanity. This song will be performed by Israeli singer Noah Kirel, a third generation of Holocaust survivors. 60 members of the Kirel family from Austria perished here in Auschwitz. Through her life and her music, Noah continues to proudly carry on the name of her family and their legacy. Noah, bevakasha. I am honored to invite Rabbi Israel Meir Lau. Rabbi Lau's father, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Lau, descending from a family of 37 generations of rabbis, was murdered in the Treblinka death camp. His mother Chaya was murdered in Ravensbrück. When he was only 7 years old, little Israel Meir was imprisoned with his elder brother Naphtali in the Buchenwald concentration camp. After the war, Rabbi Lau made Aliyah to Israel, eventually becoming the chief rabbi. He joined the first March of the Living in 1988 and has been marching with us ever since. Ad 120, Rabbi Lau, bavakasha.
Shalom uvracha, baruchim habayim b'shem Hashem. That's right, I'm privileged to be here from the very first March of the Living of 1988. Been 36 years already. There were 7 members of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, joining us in the first march. Unfortunately now, not even one of the Knesset of Israel is able to come and to take a part in the march. I speak about the march here in Birkenau because I have very deep roots, first of all, to this land. My father was born in Lvov, later Lemberg, today Ukraine. That this was Poland. My mother was born here in Krakow. My brothers were born in Krakow. I was born not far in Piotrków Trybunalski, in Poland. We are a part of the Polish Jewry, 3.5 million Jews, who most of them disappeared in the Holocaust. I know that today we speak about one phenomenon, anti-Semitism. We didn't speak about it like this a year ago, 2, 5, 10 years ago. What happened? I don't know. I can only understand that this is a disaster, a physical, not. It must be something in the minds of people. What do I mean? When we were in Poland and there were anti-Semites dead, what did we say? What did people say? Because we are changed, we are friends, we are not the same. Look at the coats, look at the hats, look at the beards, look at the Shabbat, look at the Pesach. They are different. They are not the same. And we hate the one who is different, who is not the same. But 1 kilometer from Poland was Germany. We looked like them exactly. We spoke a beautiful German. In the same coats, with no Streimel, with no hats. Same thing, same behavior. Universities, and how? What did we give to them? Families like Rothschild, personalities like Professor Einstein. So did they love us because we were the same? No. So in Poland they didn't love us because we are strange. In Germany, because we were the same. In every underground in Europe, you could meet a word like Jews go to Palestine. Jews go home to Palestine. They didn't love someone who lives in their homes and he is not independent. Give him a home and he will behave like the others. He will be beloved and appreciated by the others. So we came home. This week, next week, will be the birthday of Medinat Israel. The state of Israel was born the same month of March. And do they love us? Ask the people of the Hamas. Ask the people of all the other Arab countries, our neighbors. We are like the others. We have a home. Do they love us? No. So they hated us because we didn't have a home. Now here in the Middle East, you hate us because we have a home. So decide, what do you want? We want to exist. We want to live. We want to give something for the people, for the phenomena. And we didn't do it. You had killed ladies, gentlemen, women, all the elderly women, built children, babies, only few months ago. In Simchat Torah, September the 7th, October the 7th. What did we do there? What did the children do to you? Why is this hatred? It's something unlogic, behind logic. It's a madness. It's a madness called anti-Semitism. What is the answer? The answer is to live, to exist, to be stronger, and to be cleverer, and to be justified, and to love each other, to be one family, not to have hatred among us in between of the family, to show the world how we love each other, how we are one family, one family that wants the success of the neighbor, of the friend, of the family, first of all. This is why we are here so many years, to remind what happened and to say, never again, never again. The hostages who are still there in brutal way, brutal way, babies and elderly people all together. And we must bring them out on freedom. This place must be a witness. What happens when people, men or governments, lose their minds, lose their head, lose their love, lose the decision to make how economy, how people have to live together. I wish you all happy good news from Israel and from all the entire world. Come to Israel. Come to Israel. This is our home. All of us. This is our home and no one is behind it. We thought that university in New York, of course, it's like Israel. They love us. They appreciate us. No, unfortunately, no. You hear the news. You see the news. We must be together. We must be strong. And then we will have really Am Israel Chai.
The second torch will be lit by 6 Holocaust survivors from southern Israel in memory of those who perished in the Shoah and those who lost their lives on October the 7th. Having survived the Shoah 80 years ago, they bear the name Survivor again.
שלום, אני צילי ונקרט. אני ניצולת שואה בין המעטים שישנם. אני סבתא של עומר, ש6.5 חודשים הוא חטוף מהחמאסניקים.
אני דניאל לוז, נולדתי בפריז, שרדתי את השואה, ב7 לאוקטובר הייתי בבארי.
אני ז'קלין גליקסמן, נולדתי בקזבלנקה. בשנת 42 הגיעו הגרמנים, ואז אנחנו פשוט ברחנו ממרוקו. ואני גרה היום בקיבוץ עין השלושה.
שמי ברקו, נולדתי ברומניה, שרדתי את השואה, והיום אני חי באשקלון מ-1951.
אני בלה חיים, נולדתי בפולין, שרדתי את השואה. אני סבתא של יותם חיים, שנחטף מכפר עזה.
אני גבאי דנית, נולדתי במרקש, והיום אני גרה באשקלון.
אני יהודית סמיר, שרדתי את השואה, ועכשיו אני גרה בקיבוץ מפלצים בעוטף עזה.
רוב המשפחה של אמי הושמדו באושוויץ.
אני זוכרת
שהנאצים הפציצו את הגטו שלנו, הרבה אנשים מתו.
אמא שלי נשארה לבד עם 3 ילדים, שאפילו הגיע הרגע שהיא חשבה להשאיר אותי על השלג, שאולי מישהו יאסוף אותי ויהיו לי חיים יותר טובים.
הוריי הם מצאו מנזר של נזירות שהם היו מוכנים להחזיק בי בבית היתומים שלהם.
זה צבא אדום, שחררו אותנו והצילו את חיינו.
ב7 באוקטובר הייתי בקיבוץ.
התחלתי לשמוע צעקות בערבית על ידי ויריות. זה היה מפחיד.
והתחילו לירות.
הבן שלי מארצות הברית, הוא אומר לאשתו, אני חושב שאמא כבר לא.
שמעתי את הבום ועשיתי סיבוב בבית, נשארתי בלי חלונות.
ב8:30 הוא שלח לי הודעה קולית.
אני סבתוש, תודה. אני קצת בלחץ, יש פה מחבלים בתוך הקיבוץ, אבל כרגע אני שומר על עצמי, בסדר.
אין לנו מדינה אחרת.
אין לנו מקום אחר איפה להיות.
הפעם עצת בשם יותם, שהיה חטוף, היה גיבור, והוא שרד ולא שרד.
המתנה הזאת שצירפו אותי למצעד החיים זה בעצם סגירת מעגל כדי שאני אוכל לספר את הסיפור. את הסיפור שגם מה שהם עברו, כל אלה שלא היה להם המזל שלי.
עכשיו זה הרגע, צריך כן להזכיר לעולם שהעם היהודי חי, ואנחנו לא מוכנים שזה יקרה לנו שוב.
אני דניאל לוז. בשואה הייתי עם משפחתי ב3 מחנות הסגר בצרפת. ילד בן 10 עם אחות ואמא במחנה אחד ואבא במחנה אחר. 4 שנים בנפרד. ניצלנו בנס, אבל 10 אחים ואחיות של אמי וגם 2 בני דודים שלי נרצחו לא רחוק מכאן, באושוויץ הנורא. בשנת 1949 הגעתי למדינת ישראל. התחלתי לנשום מחדש. חייתי בקיבוץ נירים בנגב ובשנים האחרונות בקיבוץ בארי. השנה, ב6 באוקטובר, חגגנו יום הולדת 78 לקיבוץ. ב7 באוקטובר כבר היינו בני ערובה בביתנו, כשמחבלי החמאס נכנסו לקיבוץ. זה היה פחד מוות. זה היה מפחיד אפילו יותר ממה שאני זוכר כילד במלחמה ההיא. אנחנו שורדי השואה, שהקמנו בית ומדינה, שם הניצחון הגדול שלנו על הנאצים ועל האנטישמיות, מדליקים את הלפיד הזה לזכרם של הנספים בשואה ולזכר נרצחי 7 באוקטובר.
in Sydney, where Jews were told to stay away from our most famous landmark this week as Palestinians chanted "Gas the Jews."
Anti-Semitism in America haunting Jewish communities from coast to coast.
More than 100 graves damaged or overturned in the Jewish cemetery in Philadelphia.
In Germany, a synagogue was targeted with Molotov cocktails. I've asked my husband not to speak Hebrew to our son in the streets.
But I always have this feeling that we're not safe.
Über 400 antisemitische Überfälle gezählt. Dozens of Stars of David stenciled on buildings in a neighborhood in southern Paris.
Il y a 2 jours, ces graffitis antisémites comme ceux-ci partout en France.
Someone put up a sign with my name on it with a legend that said Martyros Zionist.
We have to speak up and set our stories to finally end with antisemitism.
Is that the best you got?
And a far right-wing crowd giving the fascist salute in Italy.
I remember when I was a little boy growing up in Poland. After the rise of Germany, things changed even in Poland, and especially after the event